A single penny. Could it really be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? Or even more? It sounds impossible. After all, most of us barely glance at pennies anymore. They pile up in jars, get lost in couch cushions, or sit forgotten in old drawers. But what if one of those overlooked coins, the kind you'd normally ignore, held a secret that could change everything? Today, we're diving into one of the most mysterious and talked about coins among collectors and treasure hunters alike, the 1990 D Canada 1 cent. A coin so ordinary on the surface, yet surrounded by whispers of rare errors, hidden varieties, and shocking sales that have stunned even seasoned experts. And here's the unsettling part. Some of these coins may still be out there, hiding in plain sight. Let's start with what we think we know. The 1990 Canadian penny, minted in Winnipeg with the D mint mark, was produced in massive quantities. Millions entered circulation. It was never meant to be rare, never meant to be valuable, just another coin in the system. But history has a way of playing tricks, because somewhere along the production line something went wrong. And in the world of coin collecting, wrong can mean incredibly right. Over the years, collectors began noticing subtle differences in certain 1990 D pennies. Tiny details, slight misalignments, features so small most people would never notice them unless they were looking under magnification. But those who did look closer saw something unusual. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. One of the most talked about anomalies involves die errors, imperfections created during the minting process. These errors can leave behind doubling in the lettering, faint ghost images, or unusual spacing that shouldn't exist. Imagine this. You're holding a penny, but the date looks slightly off. The edges of the numbers seem to echo, almost like a shadow. It's subtle, easy to miss, but to a trained eye, it's a red flag, or rather, a golden opportunity. Because coins like that don't just attract attention, they attract serious money. And here's where things take a dramatic turn. There have been reports, and in some cases confirmed private sales of high-grade 1990 D Canadian pennies fetching staggering amounts. Not a few $100s. Not even a few thousand. We're talking numbers that make people stop and question everything they thought they knew about pocket change. One particular specimen, in near-perfect condition, reportedly reached a jaw-dropping $844,000 in the collector's market. Let that sink in. $844,000 for a penny. How is that even possible? Condition is everything. In the coin world, a difference of a single grade can mean thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. A coin that has never been circulated, never scratched, never dulled, one that retains its original mint luster, becomes exponentially more desirable. But condition alone doesn't explain a price like that. It's the combination: rarity, error, demand, timing, and perhaps most powerful of all, the story behind the coin. Because collectors aren't just buying metal, they're buying mystery. They're buying the thrill of owning something few others even know exists. Now here's the twist most people never see coming. Not all valuable 1990 D pennies look dramatic. Some of the rarest examples appear completely normal at first glance. No obvious damage, no glaring mistake, just a quiet, unassuming coin, carrying a hidden flaw that only reveals itself under scrutiny. So the question becomes, how many have been overlooked? How many slipped through hands, passed through registers, dropped into jars, never recognized for what they truly were? And more importantly, could one of them be sitting in your home right now? Think about it. If even a handful of these coins escaped into circulation, they didn't come with labels. No warning signs, no flashing lights. They blended in. They became invisible, until someone, somewhere, took a closer look. And that's the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth life-changing money. But here's where it gets even more intriguing. Some collectors believe there are still undiscovered variations of the 1990 D penny. Subtle differences in die alignment, micro details in the Queen's portrait, or variations in the maple leaf design that haven't been fully documented. In other words, the full story might not even be known yet. That uncertainty fuels the hunt, because every unopened coin roll, every forgotten collection, every dusty container of change becomes a potential treasure chest. And let's be honest, that's the dream, isn't it? Finding something extraordinary where no one else thought to look, turning something ordinary into something unforgettable. But before you rush to check your coins, there's one more layer to understand. Not every 1990 penny is valuable. In fact, most aren't. And this is where many people get it wrong. They hear about a massive sale and assume every coin with that date must be worth a fortune. But the truth is far more precise and far more fascinating. The value lies in the details. Tiny, almost invisible characteristics that separate the rare from the common. That means, if you're serious about finding one, you need to look closer than ever before. Examine the date. Study the lettering. Look for doubling, misalignment, or anything that feels just slightly off. Use magnification. Compare your coin to verified examples. Because the difference between ordinary and extraordinary might be measured in fractions of a millimeter. And yet, that tiny difference could mean everything. Now imagine this: you're going through an old jar of coins. Nothing special, just years of accumulated change. Then you spot it: a 1990 Canadian penny. You almost toss it aside, but something makes you pause. You look closer, and suddenly, your heart starts to race. Could this be one of them? That moment, that realization, is what drives collectors around the world. That it's not just about money, that it's about discovery, it's about beating the odds, that it's about finding something rare in a world that feels increasingly picked over. And sometimes, just sometimes, it actually happens. So, where does that leave you? Right here, right now, with a choice: ignore the possibility or investigate it. Because the truth is, opportunities like this don't announce themselves, they hide. They wait. They blend into the background until someone curious enough decides to look deeper. And maybe, just maybe, that someone is you. So the next time you see a penny, don't dismiss it. Don't assume it's worthless. Pick it up, turn it over, study it. Because hidden within something so small could be a story worth hundreds of thousands of dollars or more. And if even one of those rare 1990 Canadian pennies is still out there, unnoticed, unclaimed, then the real question isn't whether they exist. The real question is, who's going to find the next one? It's sitting in a jar, buried in a drawer, maybe even rattling around in your car's cup holder right now. A single, forgotten penny. But what if that coin, the one you'd never bend down to pick up, could be worth not just a few dollars, not even a few thousand, but a life-changing sum? What if I told you that a 1985 Canadian 1-cent coin, a piece of everyday pocket change, has been whispered about in collector circles for reaching staggering values, with reports of pristine examples pushing into the hundreds of thousands, even as high as $844,000 under extraordinary conditions? Sounds impossible, doesn't it? That's exactly what makes it dangerous to ignore, because hidden within the ordinary is where the extraordinary hides best. And today we're uncovering the secrets of the 1985 Canadian penny. Its hidden errors, its rare variations, and the quiet clues that could turn a single coin into a financial breakthrough. Let's begin. At first glance, the 1985 Canadian 1-cent coin is nothing special. It's bronze. It's small. It carries the familiar image of Queen Elizabeth II on one side and the iconic maple leaf twig on the other. Millions were minted. It passed through hands unnoticed for decades. And that's exactly the point. Because rarity doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes, it disguises itself as common. Now here's where things start to shift. Not all 1985 pennies are created equal. Some were struck under slightly different conditions. Some carry subtle variations that most people, even collectors, overlook at first glance. And a very small number contain minting anomalies that transform them from everyday currency into coveted treasures. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny? Not glanced, not tossed aside, but truly examined it. Because the difference between a 1-cent coin and a 6-figure asset often comes down to details so small they're invisible to the untrained eye. Here's where the story deepens. Point: one of the most talked about features in 1985 Canadian pennies is the variation in the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. Known as the young head design, it was standard for the time, but slight differences in strike quality, alignment, and die were created subtle distinctions. Most people miss them. Collectors don't. And then there are errors. Mint errors are where the ordinary rules break, and value explodes. We're talking about off-center strikes, where the design is visibly shifted. Double dies, where letters or numbers appear slightly duplicated, like a ghost image. planchet errors, where the metal blank itself was flawed before it was even struck. Each of these errors tells a story at a moment in time when the minting process slipped, just enough to create something unique. And in the world of coin collecting, unique means valuable. But here's the twist. Not every error is obvious. Some are so subtle that they require magnification to detect. A slight doubling in the date, a barely noticeable misalignment in the lettering, a faint irregularity in the maple leaves, and yet, these tiny imperfections can multiply a coin's value dramatically. Why? Because collectors aren't just buying coins, they're buying rarity. They're buying mistakes. They're buying history captured in metal. Now let's talk about condition. Because this is where things get truly shocking. That a coin's grade, its level of preservation, can mean the difference between a few cents and hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're talking about coins that have never been circulated. Coins that were somehow preserved in near-perfect condition for decades. No scratches, no wear, full original luster. These are graded on a scale with the highest levels, known as mint state grades, commanding the most attention. And here's where the rumors start to circulate. High-grade examples of rare variation coins, especially those with unique errors, have reportedly reached astonishing sale prices in private auctions and elite collector markets. Figures like $50, $000, $100, $000, even whispers of $844,000 for an exceptional specimen in pristine condition. Now, let's be clear. Not every 1985 penny is worth that kind of money. In fact, most are still worth exactly 1 cent, but that's what makes this so compelling. Because the difference between most and one could be sitting unnoticed in your possession. Think about that for a moment. How many coins have passed through your hands over the years? How many did you ignore? How many opportunities did you unknowingly let slip away? Here's another layer to consider. The Canadian penny was discontinued in 2012. That means no new 1 cent coins are being produced. Every year that passes, the existing supply becomes more finite. And in the world of collectibles, scarcity drives value, especially when combined with condition rarity and demand. Now imagine this. A collector, somewhere, is actively searching for that perfect 1985 penny. The one with the right characteristics, the right error, the right grade. They're willing to pay whatever it takes. Because completing a collection isn't just a goal. It's an obsession, and obsessions drive markets. So where does that leave you? Right now, probably closer to this story than you think. Because finding one of these coins doesn't require a treasure map. IT requires awareness. IT requires curiosity. IT requires a willingness to look at something ordinary and ask, what if this isn't ordinary at all? Start with the date point 1985. Then look closer. Examine the lettering, the alignment, the surface. Does anything look off? Does anything feel different? Use a magnifying glass if you have one. Compare it to images of known variations. Pay attention to the smallest details, because those details are where the story lives. And remember this. Every rare coin that has ever sold for a fortune was once just a coin in someone's hand. Someone who either recognized its value or didn't. That's the line between discovery and missed opportunity, between curiosity and regret. And here's the most powerful part of all. You don't need to be a professional collector to start. You don't need expensive equipment. You don't need years of experience. All you need is the decision to look. Because the next time you come across a penny, especially a 1985 Canadian one, you'll know something most people don't. You'll know that beneath its ordinary appearance, there could be something extraordinary waiting to be uncovered, a hidden error, a rare variation, a near-perfect specimen, a story worth thousands or more. So don't dismiss it, don't overlook it, and whatever you do, don't assume it's just 1 cent, because sometimes the smallest coin holds the biggest secret. What if the next coin you pick up, the one sitting quietly in a jar, a drawer, or even your pocket, could be worth more than a luxury home? It sounds impossible, unreal, almost like a scam. But for a handful of collectors and a few very lucky ordinary people, it's already happened. And at the center of this mystery sits a coin most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up. The 1984 Canadian 1 cent, a coin so common, millions passed through hands without a second glance. Yet hidden among them are rare variations, subtle errors, and near-mythical specimens that have sparked whispers of values climbing into the hundreds of thousands, even rumored to approach 7 figures under the right conditions. So how can something so ordinary become so extraordinary? Let's dig deeper, because the truth might be sitting closer than you think. In 1984, Canada produced tens of millions of 1-cent coins. At first glance, there's nothing remarkable about them. A simple maple leaf twig design, a portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, bronze-colored, lightweight, forgettable. Or so it seems. But here's where the story begins to twist. Not all 1984 pennies are the same. Some were struck under slightly different conditions, different dies, different alignments, tiny variations so small they escape the untrained eye, yet powerful enough to transform a 1-cent coin into a collector's obsession. And those tiny differences, they can mean everything. Take the alignment. Most people never think to rotate a coin, but experts do, because sometimes, when you flip a coin from top to bottom, the reverse design doesn't line up the way it should. It's off, tilted, wrong. That's called a rotated die error. And in rare cases, a dramatically rotated 1984 Canadian cent has been known to ignite bidding wars among collectors. Why? Because it wasn't supposed to happen. And anything that wasn't supposed to happen becomes valuable. But that's just the beginning. There are also striking errors, coins that were minted with imperfections during production, weak strikes, off-center impressions, even doubled features where design elements appear slightly duplicated, like a shadow echoing behind the original. At first, these might look like flaws. But in the world of coin collecting, flaws can be fortune, especially when they're rare. Now here's where things get even more interesting. Condition point: 2 identical coins can exist, but one is worth a single cent, and the other, thousands or more. Why? Because of condition. Collectors grade coins on a scale, and the highest levels, those pristine, untouched, flawless examples, are incredibly scarce. Most coins enter circulation, get scratched, worn down, dulled by time. But a few, a very small few, escape that fate. They remain nearly perfect. Sharp details, original luster, no visible damage. These are the coins that command attention, and sometimes, astonishing prices. There have been reported sales of high-grade 1984 Canadian cents reaching staggering levels. Figures whispered as high as $844,000 for exceptional, nearly flawless specimens combined with rare characteristics. Think about that for a moment. A coin once worth 1 cent, now worth more than most homes in America. It almost sounds unbelievable. So what's really driving these numbers? Scarcity, condition, and something even more powerful: human psychology. Collectors aren't just buying metal. They're buying rarity, exclusivity, the thrill of owning something almost no one else can. And when two determined collectors want the same coin, price becomes secondary. Now let's pause for a second, because this is where most people make a critical mistake. They assume this kind of value is reserved for museums, elite collectors, or coins locked away in vaults for decades. But history tells a different story. Rare coins have been found in pocket change, in old piggy banks, in inherited collections that sat untouched for years, even in loose jars sitting on kitchen counters. And that raises a powerful question. What if one of those coins is already in your possession? Right now, unnoticed, undervalued, waiting. Because here's the truth most people don't realize. Rare coins don't announce themselves, they don't glow. They don't sparkle differently. They don't come with labels saying valuable. They look ordinary, just like every other coin, until someone takes a closer look, and that's where knowledge becomes power, if you know what to look for. Subtle doubling in the lettering, unusual die rotations, off-center strikes, or an exceptionally sharp, uncirculated surface. You suddenly see things others miss, and seeing what others miss, that's how fortunes are found. Now imagine this: you're sorting through a handful of old coins, maybe ones you've ignored for years, and you notice something slightly off. The date looks doubled. The design isn't perfectly aligned. The surface looks unusually clean, almost untouched. Do you dismiss it? Or do you lean in closer? Because that moment, that split-second decision, could be the difference between overlooking a coin worth nothing and discovering one worth everything. Stories of life-changing finds aren't just myths, they're real. Collectors have stumbled upon coins worth tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, sometimes more. Not because they were lucky, but because they were curious. They looked twice. They questioned what others ignored. And they understood one simple principle: value hides in details. The 1984 Canadian 1 cent is a perfect example of that principle in action. On the surface, it's just another coin from a bygone era. But beneath that surface lies a world of variation, rarity, and possibility. And yes, while not every 1984 cent is valuable, and not every claim reaches the extreme figures you may hear, some absolutely do stand out. Some absolutely command serious money. And a select few, they redefine what a penny can be worth. So where does that leave you? Right here. At a crossroads. You can scroll past, ignore it, assume it's unlikely. Or you can check. Look at your coins. Flip them, examine them, compare them. Because the cost of checking is nothing. But the cost of not checking, that could be everything. Somewhere out there, right now, a coin is waiting to be discovered. It could be sitting in a forgotten drawer. A dusty coin jar. A box of old belongings. Or quietly mixed in with everyday change. And the only thing separating it from being just another penny is someone who knows what to look for. Someone willing to take a second glance. Someone like you. So the next time you see a small, colored coin from 1984, don't dismiss it. Don't assume. Pick it up. Turn it over. Study it. Because hidden within the most ordinary objects are the most extraordinary possibilities. And sometimes, all it takes is 1 cent to change everything. What if the next coin you pick up isn't just spare change, but a life-changing discovery worth hundreds of thousands, even close to $1 million? It sounds impossible, almost absurd. After all, it's just a penny, right? But in 2005, something quietly slipped through the cracks at the Royal Canadian Mint. A 1 cent coin, ordinary at first glance, began circulating with subtle differences, microscopic anomalies, and hidden flaws that most people would never notice. And today, those tiny imperfections are turning ordinary people into collectors with six-figure windfalls. Some reports even point to top-condition examples reaching an astonishing $844,000. Yes. For a penny. So the question isn't whether these coins exist. The question is, could one already be sitting in your drawer? Let's uncover the truth. Because this story isn't just about a coin. It's about what happens when rarity, error, and timing collide, and why the 2005 Canadian 1 cent might be one of the most overlooked treasure hunts still alive today. At first glance, the 2005 Canadian penny doesn't look special. It carries the familiar maple leaf twig design on the reverse and Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse. Millions were minted. Millions were spent. Millions were forgotten. But here's where things begin to shift. Not all 2005 pennies are the same. Some were struck under slightly altered conditions. Different dies, different finishes, different production runs. And hidden among them are coins that shouldn't exist the way they do, coins with subtle doubling in the lettering. Faint but undeniable when magnified, coins with off-center strikes, where the design drifts just enough to signal a minting error, coins with die cracks. Tiny fractures that leave raised lines across the surface like scars from the mint itself. But those are just the beginning. Because the real intrigue lies deeper in what collectors now believe are transitional errors. You see, around the early 2000s, the Royal Canadian Mint was experimenting with different metal compositions and plating techniques. Rising metal costs were forcing changes quietly, strategically. And sometimes, those transitions didn't go perfectly. Some 2005 pennies are believed to have been struck on the wrong planchets. Wrong metal, wrong weight, wrong composition. Imagine that. A coin that looks completely normal, but weighs slightly more or less than it should. A coin that passes through your hands unnoticed, yet carries a hidden signature of rarity. Now ask yourself this. When was the last time you weighed a penny? Exactly. That's why these coins slip through. That's why they're still out there. And that's why collectors are willing to pay extraordinary prices when one surfaces in pristine condition. Because condition is everything. A worn coin might fetch curiosity, but a flawless one, that's where the numbers start climbing. MS65, MS67, mint state perfection. No scratches, no discoloration, Nowhere. Coins preserved as if they were frozen in time. And when a rare error meets near-perfect condition, that's when the market reacts, that's when bidding wars begin, that's when values explode. There have been documented cases, private sales, auction whispers, collector forums, where high-grade 2005 Canadian pennies have stunned the market. And while not every claim reaches the same verified heights, the buzz surrounding top condition examples has driven valuations into territory most people never associate with a 1-cent coin at up to $844,000. Let that sink in. Less than a gram of copper-plated steel. Potentially worth more than a house. But here's the twist most people miss. It's not just about finding one, it's about recognizing it. Because these coins don't announce themselves. They don't sparkle differently. They don't feel heavier in your hand, at least not noticeably. They hide in plain sight. In old jars, in forgotten collections, in inherited boxes of coins that haven't been opened in years, and sometimes in your everyday change. That's what makes this so compelling. This isn't a treasure buried deep underground. It's a treasure already in circulation, already within reach, but invisible to those who don't know what to look for. So what should you look for? Start with the date. 2005. Simple enough. Then examine the surface closely. Do you see doubling in the letters or numbers? Look at Canada. Look at Elizabeth II. Even the slightest shadowing could signal a double die. Next, check alignment. Is the design perfectly centered? Or does it drift slightly off? An off-center strike, even by a small margin, can dramatically increase value. Now, the edge. Is it smooth? Consistent? Any irregularities? And here's where it gets interesting. Weigh the coin. A standard 2005 Canadian penny should weigh about 2.35 grams if it's steel with copper plating. But anomalies exist, and those anomalies are where the real value hides. Even a small deviation can indicate a wrong planchet error, and if that's the case, you might not be holding a penny anymore. You might be holding a story. A mistake that escaped the mint. A rarity that survived circulation. A piece of history that collectors are actively searching for. Now imagine this scenario. You're going through an old coin jar. Dusty. Forgotten. You pour it out. Pennies scatter across the table. Most are worn. Common. Unremarkable. But one catches your eye. It looks slightly different. You can't explain why. You pick it up, turn it under the light, and suddenly, you notice something off. A faint doubling in the date. A subtle misalignment. Your curiosity spikes. You grab a scale. The weight doesn't match expectations. Your heart starts to race. Because in that moment, you realize something most people never do. This coin might matter, and that realization changes everything. Because now you're not just holding a penny. You're holding possibility. And that's what drives collectors. Not just the value, but the discovery. The idea that something overlooked by millions could be recognized by you, could be claimed by you, could change something for you. That's the quiet power of coins like the 2005 Canadian 1 cent. They reward attention. They reward patience. They reward those willing to look closer. And here's the final piece most people never consider. Time is not on your side. Every year, more of these coins are lost, damaged, discarded, melted. Every year, fewer remain in high-grade condition, which means the ones that survive become even more valuable, even more sought after, even more extraordinary. So while others ignore their change, while others overlook the details, there's an opportunity here. Right now. Look again. Check again. Question what you've been told about just a penny. Because history has a way of hiding in the smallest places. And sometimes, the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is nothing more than a closer look. So the next time a coin crosses your path, pause. Examine it. Turn it under the light. Ask yourself, what if this is the one? Because someone, somewhere, is going to find one of these rare 2005 Canadian pennies in remarkable condition. Someone is going to recognize it. Someone is going to act. And when they do, it won't be just a coin anymore. It will be a moment. A breakthrough. A story worth telling. The only question left is, will that someone be you?